Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Croft for our second race of the weekend for the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship. And this could be our first of our TCR UK support series to have a championship decided and a champion crowned here today, because Niall Murray, who has been in dominant form all year long, the Irishman in car number 5, he's on the verge of being crowned the 2018 champion. There he is, the Murray Motorsport car. He's at the back of the grid though, because his challenge for the title took a bit of a dent yesterday with a non-finish. A mechanical drama put him out of the race yesterday. His big rival, Michael Eastwell, was third in yesterday's race, and therefore was able to take quite a few championship points out of Niall Murray. Now, the situation, as it's been explained to me by Michael Eastwell himself, so you really ought to know what's going on here, is that if Niall Murray finishes within 2 points of him in this race, Niall is the champion. Niall doesn't actually have to beat Michael Eastwell, he just has to finish essentially one place behind him to take the championship in this race. That is subject to confirmation, of course, but as far as we're aware, is how things will work. So we're getting ready for 15 minutes of racing here at Croft. The lights go out, away we go. It's Josh Smith and Joey Foster on the front row of the grid together, and the two black cars run wheel to wheel down towards Clermont for the first time. Got a car on the grass further back, that got very dicey indeed, but it's Smith that leads them. Second place for Foster, Eastwell is there in third place. Cars bouncing over the curb, Niall Murray there shooting around the outside of 3 or 4 cars into the first corner, and he's already starting to pick his way through the field. Down through the chicane they go. There are your top 2 runners. Now, yesterday's race was won by Josh Smith. Joey Foster got past Michael Eastwell on the very last corner of the race to take second position. Joey seems to have a habit of doing this. Of course, he got into the lead and won the final race, a sensational race in Oslo, to part last man out on the last lap. Joey didn't win yesterday's race, but he came home second, and we're definitely looking for top step of the podium today. There is Michael Eastwell then, second in the championship, the white and blue car in shot in third position, making his way under ever darkening skies, it must be said, here at Croft this afternoon. We are expecting maybe the odd little rain shower as the day goes on. We'll have to see whether or not they materialise. There are a few spots of rain, in fact. Yes, look at that, definitely rain on the cameras up at Sunny, ironically, and that is the part of the circuit that is starting to get a bit damp and greasy. This place is very slippery when it gets wet, so this could get very interesting indeed. The leaders up through the complex for the first time. Smith leads the way, Foster in second place, Eastwell in third. There is the battle going on between the 78 car of James Clark and the 50 machine behind him of Jamie Thorburn. The 2 blue and white cars together heading out of the hairpin for the first time. Matt Rangarino is just in front of them. Matt Rangarino has been announced he's going to make a guest appearance in the British Formula 3 Championship at Donington Park for their final round in a few weeks' time. So it's another driver using the Formula 4 1600 Championship as a real springboard to work his way up the motor racing ladder. There is the number 27 XL car working his way through in 5th position. Now, Niall Murray, from the back of the grid, well, 17th on the grid, is 12th after the opening lap. So good job done so far for Niall Murray, but with Eastwell third, that would not yet be enough to take the championship. There's a long way to go though, and if the conditions continue to worsen, this could really start to twist and turn. There's the 45 machine of Rory Smith defending from the other white and red car of Matt Rangarino behind him as they work their way through town. But at the end of the opening lap, it was Smith from Foster by just under 7/10 of a second, a further 7/10 back to Eastwell in third, and side by side through the Jim Clark S's. That's brave. Oh, and sideways for Smith. He did well to hang on to that. Matt Rangarino is held up in it all as well, though. Up the inside of him goes James Clark. That was committed driving from James Clark, and Jamie Thorburn follows it through as well, but he's absolutely pelting it down at Sunny. The cars are sliding around all over the place. Thorburn very nearly off the road, and that is the part of the circuit that is going to continue to cause trouble, I think, because you are right, it's the fastest part of the circuit as well, of course, and it's the wettest part at the moment. It's not really raining over here yet at the pit complex, but over at Sunny, it is definitely getting very, very treacherous indeed. So back up towards the end of another lap they go. It looks like they're all starting to close in here on Joey Foster in second place. Joey Foster now feeling the pressure from the championship contender Michael Eastwell. Across the line they will go, and they complete the second lap of the race with Josh Smith doing the fastest lap, 1 minute 31.857. That compares to Joey Foster's fastest lap yesterday of 1:43.4, but it was even wetter in yesterday's race. Who's made there? That was James Clark on the inside that time around, and Rory Smith. James Clark has been going well in the Cliff Dempsey run car in these conditions. He's now up into 4th position, chasing down after Michael Eastwell in front of him, who can little afford to be losing ground here. Down towards Tower they will go. A few more spots on the rain down the back, spots of rain on the camera, even on the camera down the back straight there. Rory Smith again defending from Matt Rangarino as they turn into the right-hander back down the chute towards the Jim Clark S's, and then into, well, what on previous laps has been the most treacherous part of the circuit. It's not stopping them trying to overtake though. Matt Raggarino there was having a look up the inside, but this is for second position, and you can see that Joey Foster is really feeling the pressure now from Michael Eastwell, who could do with this second place if at all possible. Into the right-hander they go. The rain may be abating slightly. No, they're still sliding around all over the place. Joey Foster runs a bit wide. Michael Eastwell thought about getting up the inside through the second part of Sunny, but it is the car behind them of James Clark, making, I believe, his debut in the series this weekend, who set the fastest lap that time around. He actually beat the time set by the race leader, and he's right with the second place battle now. They weave their way through the complex again, up towards the hairpin, and here he comes, Clark up the inside of Eastwell, who really does not want to be getting involved in any sort of contact here. He runs a bit wide of the hairpin though. Clark gets up the inside, but the wider line is the line with more momentum on the exit of the corner, and so it will be Eastwell that stays in front. Clark actually now feeling the pressure from Matt Raggarino, who's trying to come back at him around the outside line. Matt to the outside, on the inside is Clark. The inside line should prevail, and indeed it does. Niall Murray, incidentally, is 11th position, but I think he was trying to get into 10th place there as he went into the first corner. He's not far behind this big queue of cars, at the front of which is the man that he's targeting, really, because if he can beat Michael Eastwell in this one, then he guarantees that he's won the championship. Down the back straight they go. Matt Raggarino now looking like the man most likely to make a move. Again, he pulls to the outside. It's wetter than it has been previously, though, down at Tower. This is the biggest braking zone. They're all squirming around again. The changeable conditions are throwing this race on his head, and James Clark gets sideways right in front of Matt Raggarino, who had to really check up to avoid running into the back of him as they accelerated out of the 90-degree right-hander and up towards the Jim Clark S's. Remember, these cars run on treaded Avon tyres, so they don't need to change tyres if it starts raining, but that doesn't mean that the grip levels won't decrease, and that certainly is something that's happening right now. The rain getting heavier up at my end of the circuit as well in the pit complex, so they're going to have to really be on tippy toes now as they try and keep it on the island. Look at James Clark there. He's all over the place and all over the back, and Michael Eastwell, a car off further back. Now that I think might have been Jonathan Brown that went around, but we'll have to wait for confirmation of that one. The leader is still Josh Smith with Joey Foster in second place. Third place for Michael Eastwell, who runs out wide, and James Clark nips up the inside, but then again, in the wet, the outside line is where the grip is, not on the line that's got the rubber that's been laid down. It's the outside line that's a bit grippier and a bit quicker off the corner. Matt Raggarino trying to use that to defend there from Rory Smith, which seems counterintuitive to go to the outside to try and defend the position, but if it gives you the run onto the straight, it's definitely the best place to be. Jack Wolfenden, by the way, has now set the fastest lap, which he set on the previous lap of the race. The lap times, strangely, until this lap at least, had been coming down, but now they're losing about 5 or 6 seconds a lap as the rain has really arrived here at Croft, and Michael Eastwell runs wide again, just trying to find the grip through Hawthorn. James Clark not really utilising the wet weather lines, and that does seem to be hurting him slightly. Through the chicanes they go, down towards the back straight. Matt Raggarino gets a wheel in the dirt. That's going to allow Rory Smith alongside him. Down towards Tower Corner, Matt Raggarino runs him off the road. That was aggressive defensive driving, and that's going to allow Jamie Thorburn to buy into it all. Jamie goes up the inside in the number 50 car and gets past both of them. Great driving from Thorburn. He holds on to it on the exit of the corner. Matt Raggarino is going to try and come back at him, and they will run wheel to wheel down towards the Jim Clark S's. This is dicey through the left. Matt Raggarino, I think, will go back in front. Yes, he will. But Jamie Thorburn, the Scottish driver, well used to driving in slippery conditions, therefore, he is starting to come alive now as the race goes on. He's trying to find a way past Raggarino without allowing Rory Smith through. They almost lock wheels in towards Sunny. Smith on the inside line. Can he go back through? Surely they're going to make contact. They do. Thorburn goes around. Rory Smith, unfortunately, getting tangled up with him. Oh dear, and the cars are locked together right in the middle of the road. Thorburn now gets going, but he's pointing the wrong way, so he's going to rejoin behind the car that he tangled with, unfortunately. That was all a bit unnecessary, but you can sort of see it coming. They can't really run side by side through that many corners in these conditions without slipping up slightly and making a bit of contact. They need to make their way through the hairpin. They're getting close together. Now look at Joey Foster really applying the pressure to Josh Smith. He can't quite make it work just yet. So Josh Smith hangs on to the race lead. Here's a replay. You can see Smith on the inside, just runs wide, tags the rear right corner of Thorburn's car, and then they just get locked together. Thorburn still flat on the power there as he tries to accelerate out of the accident. There's a bit of damage to the front end of Rory Smith's car, but hopefully both of them should be able to be joined. These cars are surprisingly robust, surprisingly well equipped to deal with that sort of contact. Well, in a dramatic opening half of the race, we are only halfway through though, 6.5 minutes still to go as they run their way now back down towards Tower. There is a bit more blue sky now starting to appear, a bit less rain in the air, so the track conditions are now coming back to the drivers. And Michael Eastwell with James Clark trying to get up the inside, but James wasn't really close enough. Where's Niall Murray? He is Niall Murray's 8th place at the moment in car number 5. So he's making steady progress through the field, but not yet enough to clinch the title in this race. Through Jim Clark S's they will go in towards Barcraft. This is the fight for the race lead though. Josh Smith, yesterday's race winner, with the winner from Alton Park last time out, Joey Foster, breathing down his neck, and Joey has really come on strong through the second half of the season, hasn't he? The first half of the year, well, he had that race win at Silverstone at the start of the season, and then things just went downhill from there, but he's drawing himself alongside Josh Smith now as they go down towards the complex. On the outside line is the second place man, but can he become the race leader? Well, not on this corner, he can't. Josh Smith fends him off as they start to trip over each other, so Michael Eastwell and James Clark are going to get closer and closer behind them. So Joey Foster would like to get on with this, get through, and maybe get his head down and pull a gap through the hairpin again. Back onto the pit straight, 5.5 minutes left on the clock in this second race of the weekend. Yesterday's race, as I said, it was Smith from Foster from Eastwell, which is exactly what we've got at the moment. It was Rory Smith who was fourth though, and he's not going to replicate that sort of performance after his option he had. He'll have to go down to Sunny. Lead gap 53 tenths of a second, the top three covered by 1.1 seconds. Niall Murray is on the tail now of Jack Wilkinson in 8th place, but he has been for a little while actually, and hasn't yet been able to find a way through. So Murray, I know he had that mechanical issue yesterday, but he's all okay with that car. Have they got it fixed, or is this maybe just a circuit that he's not gelling with? Side by side for third place here as James Clark goes to the outside of Michael Eastwell. The leaders overlap, but Joey Foster not able to draw fully alongside. James Clark is going to try and go right round the outside of Eastwell there. That gives him the inside line for the entrance to the Jim Clark S's. And this is a position that Eastwell cannot really afford to lose, but lose it he does. And James Clark goes third. Now, the pace that James Clark has had so far in this race, you wouldn't bet against him being able to close in on the leading two, and maybe challenge for a race victory. He's very wide into Sunny there, but just trying to find the grippiest side of the road. You can see that he loses time on the entry to the corner, then gains the ground again on the exit because he has a bit more traction and a bit more momentum, and he can carry that speed through down the long back straight. Josh Smith really getting his elbows out now as they work their way through the complex for the 7th time in this race. They got 9 laps in yesterday, but as I said, the conditions were quite a bit wetter than they are today. So if they get the 10th lap in this time around, maybe even 11, we'll have to wait and see. 10 laps is probably a more realistic target. They're about to go on to their 8th lap of the race now, which they do. There's a bit more rain in the air on the pit straight, but not yet enough to make the circuit fully wet. It's just unpredictable, really. It's almost psychological rain. It's there on the driver's visors, and it's enough to make them think twice about just how quickly they need to go into each corner. And they, particularly the race leader, Josh Smith is at the moment. It's a nice place to be usually, but you are now the guinea pig. You arrive at every corner and everyone else can gauge from how your car reacts to the conditions. They can gauge just how hard they can push. So Joey Foster trying to use that to his advantage, has a peek to the inside down into the braking zone at Tower, but he wasn't quite close with that time through. Third place still for James Clark, who really has arrived on the scene this weekend with a loud bang. He's caught a lot of people's attentions, and he's just overtaken the man who is trying desperately to cling on to his championship hopes. I spoke to Michael this morning, and he said that he's not really thinking about the points. He's sort of expecting that Niall Murray is going to win the championship, but at the same time, if he can keep scoring points and he can take it down to the last weekend at Donington Park, then you never know what might happen, particularly in a championship as dramatic as this one. .412, and they work their way back through the chicane. Joey Foster is right with the race leader Josh Smith, and he's in the tow now down towards Tower, but if he goes to the left hand side, that could open the door maybe for James Clark. In fact, it's Clark that ducks out of the slipstream first, then 3 abreast on the brakes down towards the braking zone, and James Clark's going to try and go around the outside of both of them. If he can find some grip, this will be the move of the day. He can't find any grip though. It was the dirty side of the road, and with the track now bone dry again, that is not where the grip is in these sort of conditions. But James Clark is not afraid, clearly, to go for a bit of a risky manoeuvre. He's trying to get the inside into Barcroft. Now that's not really an overtaking opportunity. No one's told James Clark that, though. He's pushing on here, and it does look as though Josh Smith in the lead of the race is really starting to struggle here. They're going to go on to the final lap this time around, and it's never been closer between the leading 3, nearly 4 cars, because Michael Eastwell is taking advantage of all of this squabbling to close in as well. Down towards the complex they go, and it looks as though Josh Smith went in really deep on the brakes. He did go deep on the brakes, but there's still no way through for the 155 car of Joey Foster. But to the hairpin, Foster goes to the outside, Smith goes to the inside, and so too does James Clark. I thought that might happen. James Clark trying to take advantage of Joey Foster trying to overtake the leader and trying to actually turn that into his advantage, but no, he couldn't find a way through. So as they go on to the final lap, the positions are the same. It's Smith, Foster, Clark and Eastwell, your top 4, and Clark's going up the inside into Clervaux. Oh, that was a really brave move, and they're both in the gravel trap. James Clark's in the gravel, so too Joey Foster, and that gives Michael Eastwell another position, crucially. So Eastwell is back onto the podium now. Joey Foster going wheel to wheel with Matt Ragrido, who bails out of that one and cuts across the chicane, but James Clark was having that second position, whether Joey Foster got out of the way or not. Confirmation there that Matt Ragrido's just set the fastest lap of the race, but James Clark is going for the race lead. On the final lap, he goes to the outside of Josh Smith through Tower, and if he can make this one work this time around, he'll have the inside for the Jim Clark S's, but still Josh Smith, is not letting him through. He's keeping his elbows out. It's 5 cars for the race lead as they work their way through the Jim Clark S's for the final time. Now, I was about to say, these next sequence of corners you can't really overtake at, but James Clark seems to feel that he can overtake at any corner that takes your fancy around the Croft circuit. Realistically, though, if the move comes, it's going to come at the final complex of corners, which is where they are headed now, out of Sunny for the final time, down in towards the left, right, left at the end of the lap, and to the outside line goes Clark, to the inside goes Josh Smith, and Clark go right round the outside, he gets sideways on the dirty side of the road, and Michael Eastwell could gain some more valuable championship points here if he's willing to take the risk. He's got Joey Foster trying to come back at him as well. They all concertina together into the hairpin. It's going to be a bit of a drag race to the line, but I think that Josh Smith is just going to hang on to take a double race victory here at Croft. Josh Smith takes the checkered flag. Second place goes the way of James Clark. Third place goes to Michael Eastwell. Fourth, Joey Foster. And fifth for Matt Ragrido. Sixth position goes the way of Jordan Dempsey. And Niall Murray is 7th. So Niall Murray, 7th position from the back of the grid, but he will lose points to Michael Eastwell now, so that's not enough to wrap up the championship as far as I'm aware. We'll try and get confirmation of that if we can. I think it's going to go at least down to the final race this weekend. Who knows? Could even be decided at Donington Park next time out. But Josh Smith with some really, really good defensive driving there, because I'm not convinced that he was the quickest of cars in that lead group, but he was able to keep them behind somehow to take his second win from the weekend. And we'll find out later on this afternoon whether or not he can win all 3 races, which has been done before. This was the replay of the last lap, and well, James Clark didn't get the car stopped, and Joey Foster had to take to the gravel so as to avoid contact, but well, there may be a discussion about that post-race, but there was no contact between the two of them. James Clark will argue that, there was a gap there and he was entitled to go for it. The fact that they both ran wide is sort of irrelevant as far as he's concerned, but he knew that he had to make that move then, because no matter how aggressive you are with your overtaking, you're not likely to be able to get past 2 cars in a lap around here, because it is not the easiest circuit to overtake at. There are lots of places at which you can overtake. The trouble is they're all reasonably easy to defend into, so he knew he had to get onto the tail of Josh Smith as soon as possible, preferably in time to get the run down the back straight, to use the slipstream to try and overtake down into Tower. He couldn't do it though, and so Josh Smith it is who comes into the pit lane victorious for the second time this weekend in the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship, from James Clark in second and Michael Eastwell, 2 third-place finishes this weekend. So rather like we've seen in TCR UK, the championship is still alive, but it is a big, big gap between the top 2 drivers, and Eastwell has to beat Niall Murray again in the 3rd and final race later on to take it down to Donington. So Josh Smith takes the victory, James Clark in 2nd with Michael Eastwell in 3rd, Joey Foster is 4th, and Matt Ragrido is in 5th. Jordan Dempsey making, again, a welcome return to the championship in 6th, Niall Murray up to 7th from 17th on the grid. I kind of expected a bit more from him though. 8th place with Jack Wolfenden, 9th Carter Williams, and 10th for Sebastian Job. We didn't see much of those two, but they got themselves another couple of top 10 finishes. They've really improved as the year has gone on. David MacArthur was 11th. Nico Gruber, now what's he doing down in 12th position? He's usually a top 10 contender. So too Luke Cooper in 13th. Richard Morris was 14th and Vincent Jay was 15th. We lost, of course, Rory Smith and Jamie Thorburn. They did both pull into retirement in the end after their contact. And also Jonathan Brown, who was indeed the car that we saw spinning off earlier on in the race into retirement. So, a dramatic race, a great defensive drive that was from Josh Smith though. James Clark, in a way though, driver of the race there, he really provided most of the thrills and a couple of spills, but some really entertaining driving nonetheless. There's Jamie Thorburn, who, well, there clearly was some damage to the car. I mean, to my untrained eye, I can't see what it is. It may just be that the car was stalled. It's quite possible that when he was bouncing across the grass, he stalled the car. But Jamie Thorburn, the Scottish driver, will now have to come from the back of the grid in the third race of the weekend later on. But Jamie Thorburn, who was one of the championship favourites coming into the season, things just haven't quite gone to plan. There's Rory Smith, the man with whom he tangled. They'll be having a discussion after the race, I'm sure. But in those sort of conditions, it was all too easy to make contact. They were running so close together, the slightest little slip up in the slippery conditions was always going to lead to a bit of wheel banging. Well, it was a very entertaining race that saw Josh Smith lead from pole position and take the victory, but that was not doing the race justice at all. James Clark immediately was getting his elbows out, taken to the grass on the run down to turn one, as changing weather conditions over the first half of the race caused chaos for a few of the midfield runners. Michael Eastwell was running just ahead of a charging James Clark. He got up the inside of Rory Smith down into Clervaux. That wasn't the last time he would throw a move up the inside into the first corner. He then got onto the tail of the championship contender Michael Eastwell, trying everything he could to try and find a way through as they all scrabbled for grip in the ever-changing conditions. Clark managed to fend off a charging Matt Ranguido, who was also trying to get involved in the podium battle, before Jonathan Brown lost it on his own down at Sunny and spun off into retirement. The field was very close together despite the tricky conditions. Luke Cooper having a spin, and Nico Gruber as well. That explains why those two fell down the order. There was contact between Jamie Thorburn and Rory Smith. It put them both out of the race when they were looking good for a top 5 finish. They'll now be 2 to watch for coming through from the back later on. 3 abreast for the race lead though on the penultimate lap, as James Clark tried everything he could to get past Joey Foster and Josh Smith. He couldn't do it that time down into Tower, but he was eventually able to get past Joey Foster. Got up the inside of the hairpin to no success first of all, before throwing one up the inside at Clervaux. They both ran through the gravel, but Clark was able to rejoin ahead in second position. He couldn't quite prise the door open though to find a way past Josh Smith, and so Josh it was who took a double race victory, with Clark second and Michael Eastwell keeping the championship alive in third position. Well, Rory Smith's car is towed back to Parc Ferme. These cars will be back out again later on today, and don't forget that you could follow all of the action on the BRSCC YouTube channel for all of our support races here this weekend. We're going to take a short break before we have our next race, which will be what I'm sure is going to be a cracker for the MX5 SuperCup. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with some more racing action very shortly.
You carry Cancer Research UK colours on your car? Yeah, it's a bit of story behind that, just family, and we haven't got any main sponsors or anything, so it's nice to try and spread the awareness. Thank you for that. Cheers guys, Dave, that's it for now. Hang on just a minute, before we deceive here, I have to pick out one of, I'm not going to say it. Right. Blue. Oh, he's activate. No, you're not allowed to say what Monday on the PA. I won't say it now. Okay guys, that's the Formula Ford. The grid for the next event will be as the previous event, but the first 8 cars, well, the finishing order of this event, except for the first 8 cars will be in reverse order. Josh Smith will be now on 8 on the grid all the way. David.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much indeed. Well, after Croft Racing Circuit, we move on to race 10
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Croft for our first race of the day for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. Here is how the grid lines up as the cars head out onto their green flag lap. It's James Blake Baldwin on pole position. This is a grid based on the second fastest lap times from qualifying yesterday. Will Stacey, winner from Silverstone at the start of the year, is alongside him. Third position on the grid, Steve Roberts, a welcome return for the Rob Boston Racing driver, with Simon Baldwin, a season best, qualifying on the second row with him. Row number 3, 4, championship contender Luke Herbert. We'll get to the point situation in a moment. Nick Dunn is alongside him on row 3, ahead of Colin Bysouth and Lewis Carter on the 4th row. Row 5 for Richard Wicklin and Bradley Kent. Then row 6, the other two championship contenders, Aiden Hills and the championship leader, Jack Harding. They're both going to be looking to try and move forward in this one. Johnny Greensmith is there after a big shunt yesterday in 13th with Carl Garnett alongside. Then Christian White and James Kell on row 8. Row number 9 for Gary Townsend and Darren Stapleton, with Mark Swarbrick and Will Stevenson on the 10th row of the grid. Row number 11 for Sam Tatler and Tom Parker. John Stack and George Grant make up the 12th row of the grid, with Alec Livesley and Nick Rutter at the very back of the field. So championship-wise, things couldn't really be all that much closer. We've been talking all season long, or certainly through the second half of the year, about Jack Harding versus Luke Herbert. Well, Jack arrives here, once you take the drop scores into account, 4 points clear of Luke. And Luke Herbert, who has out-qualified his championship rivals in this race, will be looking to try and take advantage of that. However, the sleeper in all of this has been Aiden Hills, and Aiden Hills, who is still about 36 points off the championship lead in third position, but he is still in contention and has been getting quicker and quicker. Of course, he scored his first ever victory in the previous race. He's the blue and orange car just coming into view now, weaving from side to side, car number 8, and he was our most recent race winner in the championship, took his first ever win for the year. The car just behind Carl Garnett there, the 43 machine, that is our championship leader, Jack Harding, and he has a lot of work to do to come through from 12th place on the grid, and Jack will be really looking to try and close in on Luke Herbert here and try to further extend the championship margin. 4 points is not a big gap between these two drivers. Jack put in a storming drive at Alton Park last time out, had a bad start in the final race, dropped outside of the top 10, and within a couple of laps had got himself right into contention to win the race, and he wasn't quite able to take the victory, of course, because Aiden Hills it was who took his first ever victory, but Jack came home second, took the championship lead, and trying now here at his home racetrack to extend it ever further. We have 5 races left in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup Championship, and it's turning into a real classic, and you can just see this one being decided on the last corner of the last lap at Donington Park. We are going to see some championships potentially decided today. This is certainly not one of them. At the front of the field, James Blake Baldwin and Will Stacey, both who will be desperate for race victories for different reasons. James Blake Baldwin as a bit of retribution. Remember, he had that exclusion at Castle Coob, which put him out of the championship race, so he'll be out for as many race victories as he can get now towards the end of the season. Will Stacey won the very first round of the season at Silverstone and was then wiped out in an accident that was not his fault at all. The car behind him lost its brakes going down into Beckett's and sideswiped Will Stacey. It wiped him out of the next few rounds, and he has yet to return to the top step of the podium since he's been back racing with the championship. The same true, actually, of the car that lines up third, Steve Roberts, who looked as though his season was starting to come alive at Castle Coob before contact with James Blake Baldwin, who starts directly in front of him, put him out of the race. He's in a new car now in his return to the championship. So the red lights are about to come on, and the first race of the day for Mazda MX-5 SuperCup is underway. Luke Herbert seems to make a good start there in the all-blue number 1 car on the extreme outside of the road. He's up alongside Will Stacey already, who's slipping backwards. It's Blake Baldwin with the lead. Second place is side by side between Steve Roberts and Luke Herbert, who's taking a big risk by going around the outside line. He stays on the road though. Aiden Hills doesn't. He's got 2 wheels in the gravel trap. All 3 of the championship contenders found themselves on the outside line then, going through Clervaux and Hawthorne. Where have they all settled out? Well, Luke Herbert is into second position. There is Aiden Hills, just ahead of Simon Baldwin, and there's Jack Harding. So Jack Harding, I think, has made the most ground of anyone there. He and Aiden Hills really passing quite a lot of cars in the first few corners. They dropped down in towards town for the first time. There is Aiden Hills, a great car, turning through. Jack Harding goes to the inside of Colin Bysouth there, and does he make his stick? Yes, he does. So Jack Harding, number 43 car, working his way ever further up the order. He needs to get to the second place man, Luke Herbert, though, because if he doesn't, Luke is going to take the championship lead back away from him. Luke, at the moment, his priority is trying to take the race lead away from James Blake Baldwin, and he looks as though he might be sizing him up to try and do just that very shortly. A bit of rain that we've had in the air in the last half hour or so seems to have disappeared from the time being, so it's a dry track, but there are some fairly frequent showers forecast throughout the afternoon, so ever-changing track conditions are definitely a possibility. Down through the complex from the leading three. Luke Herbert has now got Steve Roberts all over him. Then it's Will Stacey fourth as they turn through the right-hander. There's Jack Harding trying to get on the inside of Johnny Greensmith. He puts him on the outside line over the hairpin, but that's not going to deter him. He tries to go right around the outside. He'll have good momentum off the corner, and he'll have the inside line down towards Clairvaux. So Jack Harding driving really well here. He is going to come across the start-finish line. Let's see officially where he is classified. Harding is 8th, with Aiden Hills 6th, but going for 5th because Aiden Hills is on the outside of Lewis Carter here, down towards Clairvaux corner. Oh, and Lewis just slithers across in front of him, holds on to the position. Aiden Hills, as I said, not out of this championship fight yet. He was a bit disappointed with his qualifying result yesterday. Said that he hoped that the races would go better. So far, they are. There's Jack Harding, though, in behind Simon Baldwin now, stepbrother to James Blake Baldwin, who's leading the race. Jack Harding in the toe towards the braking zone at Tower Corner. Can he put one up the inside here and take over the position under braking? He can't. Aiden Hills, though, can. He goes up the inside of Lewis Carter, takes 5th position away. And there are now only a couple of cars between himself and his big championship rival, although I think there's one less now because that looked as though Steve Roberts had maybe slowed slightly. Yes, Steve Roberts with his hand out of the cockpit has slowed and he's waving people through. So Steve Roberts then from 3rd position appears to have got some sort of an issue. Yes, he's no longer there. Will Stacey's gone 3rd, Hills 4th, and Carter 5th as Jack Harding goes up the inside of Simon Baldwin, who locks up and runs wide, and that was just as well because they were going to make contact otherwise, I think. Jack Harding is coming through though, and he's not going to be too worried about being polite to those that he's overtaking. He's got a championship lead to try and protect. Right, back up towards the complex again, pulling Bice out there on the outside line on the way into the left-hander. Can't make a position just for the time being. Now Aiden Hills and Jack Harding have only one car between themselves. Aiden Hills, whilst he is down in 3rd in the championship, he'll still definitely be on Jack Harding's radar. And Jack diving up the inside of Lewis Carter. That was a really nice late lunge. Lewis didn't think that he had to cover that one, but you always have to defend into the hairpin really, because even if you're quite a long way behind, you can still sort of throw it up the inside and make the move stick. James Kell, unfortunately, has been off somewhere. That looks like he's pulled up maybe halfway down the back straight. Aiden Hills at the inside of Will Stacey, and Aiden Hills goes 3rd position now, and Jack Harding is going to follow him through. So that was a really pivotal move for both of them, because now the 3 championship contenders are 2nd, 3rd and 4th. There are 3 seconds though separating the 2nd place man Luke Herbert and the 3rd place man Aiden Hills. But now that these two are in clean air, can they close in on the leading 2, I wonder? Jack Harding there gesticulating at the cars around him, saying that we need to work together because the leaders have pulled a gap on us, rather than fight over these positions outside of the top 4. We need to try and close in on the leading 2, otherwise none of us are going to win the race. He and Aiden Hills, I suspect, are going to work together now to try and close in on the leaders. Luke Herbert setting the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 38.884. That has helped him to pull this nearly 3-second lead over this enormous train of cars working their way through the Jim Clark S's. Johnny Greensmith there is the next man about to try and attack Lewis Carter, under braking Lewis there in the number 73 car. Jack Harding, to me, looks as though he feels he's quicker than Aiden Hills, so whilst he'll be tempted to just sit in behind the number 8 car and work with him, I think he's going to have no choice but to try and attack he is as they go down towards the complex again. There are the leaders, James Blake Baldwin ahead of Luke Herbert. For the 3rd position, it's Luke Herbert's teammate, Aiden Hills, who is becoming a bit of a cork in the bottle here. Jack Harding definitely looks quicker than him. He's pulling to the outside towards the hairpin, watch for the dummy, he's going to try and throw it back up the inside, is he? Aiden Hills had it covered. There's a bit of a paint trade in between the two of them at the apex, but nothing too untoward. Back out on the straight with still Aiden Hills in front. This is, remember, a 20-minute race, so we're only a quarter of the way through. Yellow flags in the background, so someone's had a moment at the complex by the look of it. Possibly Johnny Greensmith, who is dropping down the order. Oh yes, look at that. Lots of damage from Johnny Greensmith's car. Well, that's a shame because they were up all night repairing the car after his fairly sizable shunt yesterday. And unfortunately, he had another big whack, and I think it might have been Colin Bice out who was tangled up with. Colin also lost a lot of positions on that lap, has carried on. Jack Harding then in behind Aiden Hills, and yeah, on that previous lap, they were quite a bit slower than the leading two. So I think Harding's going to have to go for this, but Aiden Hills is going to defend, not just because he's trying to protect his teammate who's further up the road, but mainly because he wants to try and get another podium result. But Jack Harding is alongside him now, I think down towards Jim Clark is. Not quite. Aiden Hills gets over onto the racing line and fends him off. Remember, Aiden Hills has this remarkable record this season for consecutive podium finishes. Every one of the race meetings that we've had so far in the MX5 SuperCup, Aiden Hills has had at least one podium finish. In fact, on some occasions, 2 or 3 podium finishes. He's in a podium position again here at Croft as they work their way through Sunny and back down towards the complex. And Jack Harding is giving Aiden Hills a real workover now. He falls to the outside line. The leaders still in the same order. I think Luke Herbert's quite content really to sit in behind James Blake Baldwin. Aiden Hills all out of shape though as they come through the left-hander. Jack Harding I think is now starting to get a bit frustrated here. He knows that he can go quicker than Aiden, but he just can't quite find a way past him. Again, the number 8 machine defends the inside line. There's more contact now. Jack Harding has been driving so carefully this year because last season he was taken out of the championship battle as a result of a disqualification, much the same way that James Blake Baldwin has suffered from the same fate this year. So Jack, above all else, has been trying so hard not to get involved in any fisticuffs out on the racetrack, because if you get an exclusion, you can't count it as one of your dropped scores, so it really effectively takes you immediately out of the championship battle. Jack has done so well this year to keep things clean, but at the same time, now it's go time really. 5 races left in the championship, and if things finished as they are now, then he and Luke Herbert would be, well, Luke in fact, who set the fastest lap, would be ahead of him again, so Luke would take the championship lead. If Jack can get in front of Aiden Hills, though, they would be tied on points going into the final race of the day later on, and this time around he's got the overlap. I think he might have done it. That was a really nice switchback manoeuvre there from Jack Harding, and he gets alongside on the run down towards the Jim Clark S's. They almost lean on each other again. Jack's going to go around the outside through the left-hander, gives him the inside line for the right-hander, and Jack Harding is through. Jack Harding is into 3rd position. Brilliant driving there from Jack at his local circuit, and this will be a very popular result if he can get himself onto the podium, even more so if he can now chase down the leading 2. So Jack Harding goes 3rd. He gets 2 wheels in the dirt there coming out of the first part of Sunny, but he is about to appear into the sight of the spectators down at the complex, the new 3rd place man. The battle now is the one for 4th position between Aiden Hills, Will Stacey and Lewis Carter, because Aiden Hills, the car just doesn't look very happy, does it? He's looked really comfortable for the last couple of rounds at Castle Coombe and Alton Park, but for some reason here at Croft, it's just not agreeing with him really, and he's locking up again there in towards the hairpin. The car seems to be moving around quite a lot underneath him. Park race winner looking unlikely to replicate that sort of a result, at least in this race, unless they can make a setup change ahead of race number 3 later on, which will be a partially reversed grid race, of course. So there's a chance we could get a better result in that one. There are the leaders. James Blake Baldwin still just about ahead of Luke Herbert, who you sort of get the picture here. I don't really think he's trying too hard to attack James Blake Baldwin. Now, don't get me wrong, if there's a gap or an opportunity to present itself, then I'm sure that Luke Herbert will go for it. But 2nd place scored more points than the non-finish, so he knows how feisty James Blake Baldwin can be. In a way, there's not really much point in taking too many risks here. However, that might start to change if Jack Harding starts catching them, but at the moment he is not. His previous lap, despite being a personal best for Jack Harding, at 39.5, was still 6/10 slower than the leaders, so he's not catching them at the moment. And in fact, in this lap, the first sector, Luke Herbert has set the fastest first sector of anybody all race. So Luke, using the slipstream, of course, in behind James Blake Baldwin, is currently still going quicker than that man, his big championship rival Jack Harding. Aiden Hills with the bumper trailing slightly behind him now after that contact that he had earlier on with one of the bits of contact he had earlier on with Jack Harding. It wasn't anything particularly too robust, but look at Aiden Hills all out of shape. He's on the grass. Aiden Hills runs wide onto the grass. Through will go Will Stacey. Oh no, he won't actually. Will Stacey, well, it looked for all the world there like Aiden Hills had lost so much momentum that he was going to lose 2 positions, but actually gets it back on the road, still in front of Will Stacey and Lewis Carter. But Aiden definitely struggling with the handling of that car, and if he can hang on for another 10 minutes, that would be quite a remarkable drive. And look at the way the car is sliding. Is there something damaged maybe in the rear of the car? Because that car is sliding around excessively, I'd say. That's not just, these cars are rear-wheel drive, of course, but they're not the most powerful 2-litre engines in these Mazda MX-5 SuperCup cars, but it's not usual that you see that sort of power sliding, and it's on the way into the corner as well. I think maybe one of those whacks that he's had from Jack Harding has maybe dislodged something or just knocked something loose in the rear of the car, and it's really not a happy Mazda MX-5, this one. So Aiden Hills, who now you have have to say, is kind of waving goodbye to his realistic championship hopes. And a fourth place finish may be as good as it gets. In fact, he'll do well to hold on to this fourth place, because Will Stacey and Lewis Carter are really applying the pressure as Stacey goes up the inside through Tower Corner. Do they lean on each other? There's another bit of contact. The other side of the rear bumper on Aiden Hills' car now gets pulled loose, but he still is hanging on tenaciously to this fourth position. Back through the Jim Clark S's they go. Behind them, by the way, Simon Baldwin is 7th, Richard Wicklin is 8th position. Now, Richard hasn't had that many top 10 finishes this year. 9th place for Christian White, and Nick Dunn is inside the top 10 as well, having a good race. But that's all going on behind this group, and are making their way through the sunny complex for the 7th time of asking, and running back down towards the complex now. Incidentally, Jack Harding is still not catching Luke Herbert, even though he's in clean air now. On the previous lap, Luke was half a second quicker than him. Although this changes things, because the safety car is being scrambled. Now, what's this for? The safety car being called, because Nick Rutter is beached in the gravel trap. I'm going to assume that's at Clervaux. Yes, it is. Nick Rutter, yes, that car's well and truly beached and is going nowhere. And all of a sudden, what was the gap between Herbert and Harding? It was 5.6 seconds. All of a sudden, that gap is now going to absolutely disappear. And Jack Harding, although he wasn't quite capable of lapping as quickly as Luke Herbert on his own, give him a slipstream and give him a fighting chance of getting past his big rival. And all of a sudden, this race starts to come alive. We're still only just into the second half of the race, well, about 2/3 of the way through the race now. Hopefully, this will only take a couple of laps behind the safety car to get cleared up, and it may well be that we get a 5-minute sprint to the flag. Now, this is what happens to Nick Rutter. He's at the back of this group. Oh, he just outbraked himself and just ran straight on. That was an odd one, really, wasn't it? He didn't lose the rear of the car. The car just never really turned into the corner, and it's a very deep gravel trap, and it has to be, because it's not a particularly big runoff area there, so the gravel trap has to be deep so as to stop the cars before they make the barriers. It did its job there, but for Nick Rutter, unfortunately, it has cost him any chance of finishing this race. So Nick Rutter is out of proceedings for the time being, but no real damage to the car, so he should be able to get back out there for race 3 later on. So, James Blake Baldwin leads the way, Luke Herbert is 2nd, Jack Harding is 3rd, Aiden Hills 4th, Will Stacey is 5th, still looking to try and find a way past Aiden Hills. For Aiden, this safety car coming really at quite a good time, because it means that he can sort of catch his breath, cool down the tyres as well. He probably overheated the rear tyres with the way in which that car was sliding around, so he can cool down the rear tyres, bring the tyre pressures down, bring his blood pressure down as well, I'd imagine. He's been really busy at the wheel of the number 8 car, trying to keep people behind him. Then Will Stacey 5th, 6th place for Carter, 7th place is Simon Baldwin, 8th for Richard Wicklin, 9th is now Nick Dunn. So Dunn has found a way ahead of Christian White at some point. Christian down into 10th place, but there are the two championship contenders. 4 points is the advantage for Jack Harding. If things finished as they are now, Luke Herbert would score 2 points more than him for finishing in 2nd place, because there's a 2-point difference between 2nd and 3rd. However, Luke would score a bonus 2 points for setting the fastest lap, so that's a 4-point gain. You do the maths, that tells you that they will be tied on points going into the final race of the day, but with 3 races after that still to go at Donington Park, a circuit that often produces some of the best racing in the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. It's a circuit that really suits these cars. They can stay close together. There are lots of places where they can overtake. Around here at Croft, it's not so easy to overtake, and so that's what really makes this performance from Jack Harding and Aiden Hills as well all the more impressive, because they started deep in the field, they survived the first lap shenanigans, and they've got themselves right to the front again. Now, the safety car had pulled away from them then, but no, I didn't think it was going in. The lights were still flashing. It was just a bit too late to bring it in this time around. They did get Nick Dunn's car out of the gravel trap, but I don't think the marshals and the recovery vehicles had quite left the scene in time for the call to be made to restart the race. So James Blake Baldwin will have another lap behind the safety car. 1 lap less in which he will have to defend Luke Herbert, and 1 lap less for this man to try and find a way past Luke Herbert. Jack's car, for whatever reason, wasn't working very well in qualifying yesterday. It was a damp qualifying session, so that's possibly what it was. Jack maybe feeling a bit more comfortable in the dry here, but this is his local circuit, so Jack Harding, you'd imagine, has driven this place in most conditions. But for whatever reason, qualifying didn't go his way yesterday. Race, as we saw at Alton Park, as we've seen a few times actually this year, Jack Harding's qualifying performances haven't always been stellar, but he's a real racer, and he seems to be able to claw his way through the field with relative ease. Now, that's not me belittling what he's doing out there. I'm sure it's not easy at all, but he makes it look easy, and that really is the sign of a really good racer. For Jack Harding, he now has one more overtake that he needs to make. That is the overtake on Luke Herbert, and if he can do that, then he will actually extend his championship lead rather than losing ground. For James Blake Baldwin, it's all about trying to win the race though, and that is what he's going to try and do, with what's going to equate to about 3.5 minutes left on the clock, because the safety car is going to win this time. So we're going to have a couple of laps of racing still to go, and the championship battle starts to hit fever pitch again, with Luke Herbert and Jack Harding second and third respectively in the race. First, or second and first at the moment respectively in the championship. Can Jack Harding find a way through and further extend the lead, or is Luke Herbert going to be able to close the gap in this race? They work their way through the complex. James Blake Baldwin slowing the pace right down, trying to catch the cars behind by surprise. It's difficult to do though through this final complex, because you really have to leave your acceleration until you get out of the head, and at that point you'd be accelerating anyway, so it's pretty easy to predict what the leader is going to do. And indeed we see that Luke Herbert is able to go with him, but more significantly Jack Harding is now about 5.5 seconds closer to those two than he was before the safety car came out, and has a real chance to get up there and maybe even win the race. So 3 minutes to go. By my reckoning, that's 2 more laps as they work their way up through Clermont for the 10th time. James Blake Baldwin leads the way with Luke Herbert now possibly feeling the need to go a little bit more offensive here, because if he starts feeling the pressure from Jack Harding, then he will maybe need to try and get a car between them. So to come out of the chicane, it is Luke Herbert who's starting to look a bit more racing, but Jack Harding not really staying with them initially off the restart, is he? Down towards Tower they go. Is Herbert going to have a look at the inside? He is not. If anything, Harding is feeling the pressure now from a rejuvenated Aiden Hills, who he did seem to be struggling, didn't he, in the first half of the race, but now after the safety car, as I suggested, maybe he's had a chance to cool everything off and have another go at this. So they're starting to pair off slightly, 2 for the lead and 2 for third place behind them, as they work through the Jim Clark S's in towards Barcroft. And look at Luke Herbert, he's now starting to take slightly tighter lines, taking a bit more of an aggressive approach to the far end of the circuit. Jack Harding now starting to come alive as well in the second half of this lap, and closing back in on the pair of them. And if Luke Herbert starts to feel that he's being held up by James Blake Baldwin, that will make him all the more eager to find a way through. Down towards the complex they go. They touch and go actually as to whether we get 1 more or 2 more laps after this one. There's 1 minute and 50 left on the clock. A quick lap in this race is 1 minute 38. So no, I think we're going to be going on to the final lap this time around. Ahead and they go, and Harding is there, and he's into the back of Luke Herbert nearly. That came out of nowhere, didn't he? So I said that he was closing in over the second half of the lap. He really closed in through the final corner, but they are now, I can confirm, going on to the final lap of the race, and James Blake Baldwin breaks the fastest lap there, 1 minute 38.828 for Luke Herbert. It is all about defending second place now. I think he has to accept that he's not going to win the race. It's now what he can do about keeping Jack Harding behind him. Through Hawkins they go for the final time. This long right-hander, and then into the chicane that leads them onto the back straight. And Luke Herbert, now that he's slipping back slightly from the race leader James Blake Baldwin, he'll get slightly less of a tow, and that might mean that Harding's able to get a bit closer to him. Down towards the braking zone at Tower. How much of a risk will Jack Harding want to take here? Well, not much at the moment, because he didn't even think about going up the inside into that particular braking zone. Instead focuses on the exit speed, which looks good, and he's right back with the reigning champion Luke Herbert, and the man who's currently second in the points coming into this race. So they go through Jim Clark S's once again. Herbert possibly closing back in again, but this is the part of the circuit where Harding was really quick on the previous lap, so can he maybe start building to a challenge now? Looks like he can. Luke Herbert there feels the need to move over to the middle of the road in towards Sunny, and Jack Harding is visibly quicker into that part of the circuit, so he's only a car length behind, so they can go through Sunny out and back down straight towards the complex. Blake Baldwin looking as though he might be able to hang on to the victory. It's really the battle behind him that is attracting most of our attention. Having said that, Luke Herbert closing right back in actually as they come through the complex. But are we going to see any changes into the hairpin? It is a prime overtaking opportunity. Herbert knows it. He goes in defensive. Watch for Harding to try and get the switch back here and win the drag race down to the start-finish line. He gets a better exit than Luke Herbert, but I don't think he's going to get there. James Blake Baldwin is going to take the checkered flag though in our first race of the day for the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. Luke Herbert celebrating his second place as if it was a race victory though, because he fends off Jack Harding by 0.2 of a second. So it's Herbert in second, Harding third, and Aiden Hills does fend off Will Stacey by, again, only 0.3 of a second. For fourth position, Will Stacey is fifth, Simon Simon Baldwin 6th, Lewis Carter dropped down into 7th place there in the later stages. Richard Wickland 8th, Carl Garnett got into the top 10, and Nick Dunn dropped back down into 10th position at the end. Great drive though from James Blake Baldwin for the race victory. And great drive for Luke Herbert, who by my reckoning, and I'll try and get that confirmed before our final race of the day later on, but that I reckon puts them tied on points again, because as I said, they were 4 points apart going into the race, and I reckon that Luke Herbert's just scored 4 more points than Jack Harding, so it couldn't be any tighter between those two. Aiden Hills perhaps now just starting to slip slightly out of the championship equation, but you can never count anybody out in this championship, and of course if, and we hope this doesn't happen, but if either or both of the top two were to have non-finishes, or in particular disqualifications, Aiden Hills would be right in the catbird seat, so you can't count him out. He's mathematically still in contention. Realistically, it's between Herbert and Harding, who neither of them could find a way past James Blake Baldwin, because James it is who took the race victory by 7/10 of a second over Luke Herbert in 2nd, Jack Harding 3rd, and Aiden Hills in 4th. Will Stacey was 5th, Simon Baldwin 6th ahead of Lewis Carter, Richard Wickland, Carl Garnett and Nick Dunn, who rounded out the top 10. Outside of the top 10 then, we had in 11th place Christian White, 12th Darren Stapleton, 13th Gary Townsend, 14th Alec Livesley, and 15th for Mark Swarbrick. Steve Roberts dropped down into 16th place after slowing. Now, I actually presumed that he pulled into the pits to retire, but he kept going and finished in 16th, so I'm not sure what the problem was. George Grant was 17th, Bradley Kent was 18th, with John Stack 19th, and Will Stevenson rounding out the top 20. So, an entertaining race again from the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup, and here are some of the highlights. It was a great start from Luke Herbert, who came through from 4th on the grid to be 2nd place after the shuffle through the first few corners. It was very lively in the midfield, but it was Blake Baldwin that led them through the first corner and was actually never headed for the rest of the race. All eyes though were on Jack Harding, the championship leader, working his way through the order from a really lowly grid position of 14th, but he worked his way into the top 10 by the end of the opening lap, and it wasn't long before he was fighting for podium positions. He made some really nice moves along the way, particularly this aggressive manoeuvre up the inside of Simon Baldwin, who had to leap out of the way so as to avoid contact, and then a really nice cheeky move up the inside of the hairpin to get past the number 73 car of Lewis Carter. Aiden Hills got past Will Stacey and got into a podium position after the demise of Steve Roberts, but he could not fend off the much quicker Jack Harding, and as Aiden Hills' car seemed to fade as the race went on, Jack was able to get through and pull away. Aiden himself survived a really big scare at Sunny, miraculously not losing any positions despite running out over the grass. Nick Rutter, though, could not be so fortunate up at Clervaux. He went off into the gravel trap, went out of the race and brought out a late safety car. On the restart, Jack Harding did everything he could to try and put the pressure on his big championship rival. There was a bit of contact at the hairpin, but he could not get through. And so with Blake Baldwin winning the race, 2nd place for Luke Herbert and 3rd for Jack Harding, it makes the championship battle even closer than ever going into the final race of the weekend. Well, that race is coming up a little bit later on this afternoon, sometime around 10 minutes past 5. Please make sure that you stick around to watch that race. We believe there's been a few technical problems with the live Facebook feed. Hopefully that's up and running now. I know that people are working on it. If it's not, or if you are listening to us now on Facebook and the stream drops out again, don't forget that everything is being streamed live on the BRSCC and TCR UK YouTube channels as well. So head over to YouTube if the Facebook stream isn't working, and then you can keep up with all of the action today. We've got plenty more racing, another TCR race later on, but our next race will be up in just a few minutes' time, and that will be our first race of the weekend for the Miltech Sport Volkswagen Racing Cup. We'll be back with that in just a few minutes' time.
Congratulations, taking our wins, and congratulations, Jack. Right, and in 2nd place, Luke Herbert. We have Luke. Congratulations, Luke. And the winner of the first Mazda MX-5 SuperCup here on this afternoon, we've got James Blake Baldwin. James, come forward. Whoops. Yes. And they did get me honest all the way around. It's very difficult to try and get an advantage. There's a great toe behind, and I can just see every time I took the ball, it's a bit of a gap, Luke would be right there again. But no, it was a great race. Shame the safety car came out and we had to work through all over again. But yeah, no, great result really. Can't thank Fleet Motorsport enough for what they've done with the car.
Right, into the championship, a good handful of points there as well.
Yeah, it is a good result. Sadly, I don't think you can win the championship. This year, but it's a good race.
Congratulations, thanks very much. Have a quick with Luke, who was waving jubilantly across the line, obviously because you finished in front of Jack.
Yeah, I mean, that's the aim now. This is at the end of the season, the aim is to win the championship. That's 4 points ahead of me for that race. So all I needed to do was be in the Jack. I'm going to come up with it, probably be Jake's side badly. So each one down Jack gets one of my potentially 4 points, but less from all part trying to take me. So, I mean, Jack's a good excellent season. He's won all consistently. So yeah, I went up to finish up front every time I was Jack had a couple of mistakes. So it's going to go down to the wire, but that's what gives this championship.
One more race this afternoon to come as well, so we'll look forward to that and of course we're in the Donington. Sorry, right, Jack, congratulations. Obviously not starting too well over the grid, but you're making your way through, and possibly the safety car helped you a bit as well, closing on the top two.
Yeah, we went through there yesterday. We got the right stuff. I got trapped, so the ball handling very well. 4-5, 12, 14. So yeah, no, we still got through as many as we could in the first few laps, and then we got to Hawk, and Aiden was obviously trying to be good, and Sarah was wanting a lot of time to lose the games. Then eventually I got past Aiden, and then obviously I needed a miracle, and then I got the safety car. Oh, this is great. And then I was right back to Luke, and then as soon as the safety car went in, I realised I just had no tyres left. So not much I could do there, but come from third, come from 14th, finish there. Absolutely.
We saw that, we thought you might have the chance of catching, but then very quickly got back, so that was tyres.
Yeah, exactly. I just use all the tyres up, obviously. And then guys who just go around and running a bit of air, but I was using all the tyres to try and get through the field. So, no, it's not a limitation and good for the rest of it.
It's looking, we're going to wire on it.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. It's going to be close. So,
congratulations. Well, good congratulations to all our drivers in the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. Right, congratulations to them. Right, we'll head back, Andy. I think you've got the grid for our next event.
Thank you very much, David. Yes, just before that, is the World-Tech Sport BW Racing Cup. About to have 18 cars on the grid on one side, and then 8 down. A variety of, group cars, now 15 team, in all positions of the local time. Walter started on team, clocking in 133.514, on time current temperature leader Jamie Bond. BW Golf, 133.8, so 3/10%. Grid. The second row of the grid is 101, Joshua Jackson from Bexley. BW Golf 134.405. Onside from 12, which is Josh Coggan. From Lancaster is BW Golf 134.477, so just 72 out to the second, separating third and fourth on the grid.
Welcome to the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup. Cars making their way onto their green flag lap now, ahead of their first of 2 races today, both of which will be live streamed. I hope you are enjoying the action here this afternoon at Croft. Here is how the grid lines up with Simon Walton and Jamie Bond that make up the front row of the grid, with Josh Jackson and Josh Coggan, a pair of Joshes together on the second row. Row number 3 for Rory Clark and Owen Walton in the second of the Audi TTs, with Anthony Prendergast and Paul Taylor former champion on the 4th row of the grid. Row 5 for former mini racer Mark Wakefield and former British touring car racer Martin Depper, who was a front runner at Alton Park last time out, with Darren Lewis, former Mazda racer, and Matthew Evans making up the 6th row of the grid. Row number 7 we have Matthew Wilson and Tom Walker, with Tom Witts one to watch moving forward from there, I would suggest, with Jack Depper on the 8th row. And row 9 for Simon Tomlinson and Toby Davis, who had dramas in qualifying yesterday. Again, should be inside the top 10. He's going to be able to work his way up the order ever so slightly. So this is the penultimate round of the championship. 2 races here today and 2 races at Donington Park in a few weeks' time on the British GT support package that time around. And the championship is reasonably tight. Jamie Bond is 24 points ahead of Matthew Wilson. So the championship, in theory, could be sewn up here this weekend. Of course, Jamie's qualified second, and Matthew Wilson has qualified down in 13th on the grid. So it was, I believe, a wet qualifying session yesterday. Yes, a damp qualifying session yesterday afternoon. That's maybe given us a slightly jumbled up grid. So it may well be the case that over the course of the race, that established order starts to form once again. But there is the championship leader, Jamie Bond, the white and blue number 56 car, moving around trying to get the temperatures of the tyres. If you haven't seen the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup before, it is a championship for, unsurprisingly, lots of sort of production-based but then race-prepared VWs, Golfs and Scirocco's predominantly. However, it is also open to other cars within the VAG family, so that's why we have the pair of Audi TTs, father and son duo, Simon and Owen Walton. Simon Walton, last time we were covering this championship live at the Alton Park round, which was in fact the last round of the championship, Simon Walton qualified on pole for that race as well and got an absolutely abysmal start. So keep an eye on that pole position Audi TT. If he gets off the line well, the car is very quick, but seems to be struggling with that a little bit at the moment. There is Matthew Wilson. That is the car that is starting 13th on the grid, second in the championship in his VW Scirocco. Needs to make progress, absolutely needs to make progress. If he loses points to Jamie Bond in this race, it could be all over as far as the championship's concerned. So the back end of the field is starting to work his way into position. There is Wilson, the grey and white number 31 machine. Very, very well turned out, as all of the cars are, in fact, on the grid. Provides lots of really exciting racing for this championship, as we saw at Alton Park, where at times it got a bit too close. There was a bit of contact along the way, but provided great entertainment nonetheless. So Simon Walton and Jamie Bond make up that front row of the grid, with Josh Jackson and Josh Coggan on row number 2. Who is going to take the victory in the first of 2 races here this afternoon at Croft? We are about to find out. The field of cars lining up now. The back row, I think, is nearly in place. That will be Simon Tomlinson and Team Hard racer Toby Davis at the back of the grid. Once the green flag waves and the marshals are satisfied everyone's in position, then we're good to go racing. So there we are, the flags are waved. 20 minutes on the clock for the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup. The red lights come on, they go out. Quite a long hold. Now away we go, and what happens at the front of the grid? Does Simon Walton get off the line? Not particularly well. I think Jamie Bond's in front. Yes, he is. Jamie Bond snatches the lead down towards turn number 1. The championship leader gets himself out in front. Simon Walton trying to hold on to second place, which he should be able to do. He'll get cleanly through. 1 or 2 on the gravel track on Baldwin. Oh, the contact! Oh, that's one of the Waltons. That's Simon, I think. Simon Walton's been around, I think, and he's tangled with Josh Coggan. That Josh Coggan pulled off the side of the road. So Simon Walton, who was in second position, lost the car. We didn't see how that started, but he then sort of was sideways in front of the pack, and that has really jumbled up the order. So down towards Tower they go. Where is Jamie Bond? There is Bond. So Jamie Bond leads the way. Second place is the number 2 car, Paul Taylor, from 8th on the grid. That's how much it jumbled the order. Martin Depper is in 3rd position. 4th place for Mark Wakefield, and that is, I think, Owen Walton. Yes, it is, in the surviving Audi, running in line just behind them in 5th. So up through the Jim Clark S's they go. Unsurprisingly, though, with presumably a couple of cars stranded up at Hawthorne, the safety car is being thrown. So the race is immediately put on ice. But what on earth happened? All this damage. Look, to Paul Taylor's car, actually. The driver's side window has come loose, but there is Simon Walton. Well, he got off the line a bit better than he did at Alton Park, but not particularly well. It put him down into second place, and then something happened up through Clairvaux. The car got sideways, and the next thing you know, he's been ploughed into by, I think, more than one other car by the look of the amount of damaged cars that we've got traipsing around. There's Josh Jackson. Sorry, it wasn't Josh Coggan, it was the other Josh Jackson in the 101 car that was also involved, and one of the Team Hard racers. And he looks to have had a fairly hard hit there. It must be said, the front of the car is quite badly damaged, but he's chatting away to the marshals. Clearly okay, but his race coming to a premature end. So here is a replay of what happened. So Simon, Simon had actually lost the car at the apex. You could just see as the car left our side that he was sideways already and presumably got into a bit of a tank slapper. Jackson got involved, and the number 12 car of Josh Coggan was delayed in all of that too. But if we get to see that again, you'll see that just as the Audi disappears from sight, the rear of the car broke loose, and on cold tyres, that's not uncommon at all into the first corner. I've mentioned already we've had a bit of rain in the air. The low track temperature means that maybe cold rear tyres came into play there. Watch the red, black and white Audi in second place. Simon Walton turns into the corner okay. We can see Jamie Bond has a big moment on cold tyres, and then Simon Walton, just as he disappears from view, the car is just braking sideways, and unfortunately, as he was correcting the car, the rest of the field sort of ploughed into him. So there was the destruction. So I think it was Jackson that he got first of all, and then Coggan had to take a boarding action. Martin Depper in the green car, the diesel car, run by the DW Racing Squad. That is Darrell Wilson's old car, the current TCR racer. And Martin Depper did well to avoid that. But yes, thanks for showing the replay again there. That was hard to see maybe at first what happened there, but it does look like it was just a case of cold tyres catching Simon Walton out and ultimately putting him out of the race. And you do have to worry for the state of that car, whether we're going to get it out again for race 2 later on. The red flags are now flying, so there's clearly, this is going to be a fairly lengthy clean-up operation up at Clairvaux. There are at least 2 cars. Yes, I think it is just the 2 cars that need clearing up, Walton and Jackson. Everybody else made it back through at the end of the opening lap, but the red flag's flying, and that means that we will get a restart, but it's not going to come for maybe a little while, 5 or 10 minutes or so maybe, before we get the race back underway. So the safety car will lead the field around to the grid. The cars will line up on the grid in original grid order. It will be as well, because we hadn't completed 2 racing laps. So with it being a very early red flag, they will put them back in the order in which they were originally, minus the pole-sitting car of Simon Walton and the third place car of Josh Jackson. So Jamie Bond essentially now inherits pole position. But it has to be noted that he actually got himself into the lead anyway without the when he did have Simon Walton alongside him. He was still able to get the lead into the first corner without him alongside. You have to imagine Jamie will lead again off the restart. So this will be sort of the grid for the restart. It will be no Simon Walton, but Jamie Bond will be there on the front row. There will be no Josh Jackson, but Josh Coggan, hopefully, as long as his car wasn't too badly damaged, will be there on row number 2. Then everyone else should be in position. So Rory Clark 5th and Owen Walton 6th, Anthony Prendergast 7th, and Paul Taylor, who will be a bit disappointed about this because he got himself into 2nd place from 8th on the grid originally. He's now going to do it all over again from the 4th row. Mark Wakefield and Martin Depper will be on row 5. Darren Lewis and Matthew Evans on the 6th row of the grid, ahead of Matt Wilson and Tom Walker on row number 7. Then it's Tom Witts and Jack Depper, row 8. Row 9 will be Simon Tomlinson and Toby Davis. So that should be vaguely how they will line up on the grid for the race restart. We'll await news on, yes, I thought they were turning the cars into the pit lane then, but no, they're not. They are gridding them back up again. So we'll wait for news on what length this race restart is going to be over. It's doubtful that it will run to the full 20-minute duration. It may be shortened to about 10 or 15 minutes, but as I said, news on that when we get it. There is Josh Jackson's car being unceremoniously dumped onto the low loader, and the GKR scaffolding liveried machine is a very well turned out car, but if they do get it out for race 2, you'd imagine that it might not be quite in showroom condition anymore. But as long as they can get the suspension and the radiator, which may well take a whack, as long as they can get all that fixed, then there's no reason why he can't get out there for race 2. But it's going to be quite a hard job for the team to get that car and this one fixed in time for race number 2, because there is the Audi of Simon Walton, which lost it in front of the pack going through turn 1. He was in 2nd place, so nearly in front of the whole pack, and was collected unfortunately by several other cars, and that really Well, that's possibly, actually, ironically, not quite as badly damaged as the cars that hit it. So he may have got away with that. The suspension seems okay, I think, on the front left corner. I'm sure it's not quite right, but it's not, the wheel is not pointing wildly in the wrong direction. So replace the bodywork, check that the internal workings of the radiator and everything else at the front of the car are working correctly, and they hopefully should be able to get that car back out on circuit for race 2. Well, spectators hanging on in there in what are becoming ever breezier and ever chillier conditions here at Croft, but hopefully we'll be able to get them racing again very shortly. The car's already being cleared up from the scene of the accident, and we should be able to go racing in just a few minutes' time. There you can see the cars just lining themselves up with the assistance of the hard-working British Marshals. Thanks again to all of the men and women in orange around the circuit, without whom we couldn't enjoy motor racing like this. Already this weekend they've had quite a lot of incidents to deal with, but good to see that the British Marshals continue to be regarded worldwide as some of the most efficient and some of the best marshals in the world. So they set to work moving Simon Walton's car out of the way. Simon Walton, who was 7th in the points going into this race, and was actually only 2 points behind Paul Taylor, and was looking good to maybe move up a position or 2 in the championship this weekend. That's not going to happen now, unfortunately. In the championship, I mentioned that it's 24 points between Jamie Bond and Matthew Wilson, but Toby Davis and Rory Clark are tied for 3rd place on 322 points. They're not realistically in championship contention, but they are tied for 3rd, and they're only 18 behind Matthew Wilson for 2nd, so that's sort of a 3-way fight for 2nd in the points that could develop. Well, Toby Davis is starting right at the back of the grid after issues in qualifying yesterday, whilst Rory Clark is up there in 5th on the grid, which now essentially becomes 3rd on the grid, of course, and he'll have a nice big gap in front of him because Josh Jackson and Simon Walton, 3rd and 1st respectively on the grid, will not be there for a restart. Got a view there of Simon Tomlinson's car with the door open at the back of the grid, just trying to let some cool air into the car, because it's remarkable, as cold as it is outside, in the cars, with the engine running and the fireproof race suit and the helmet and the balaclava on, the drivers will be getting very warm at this stage, sort of sat around just waiting for something to happen. And Wilson likewise sat there very eager to get the race back underway here if at all possible. Matthew Wilson 2nd in the championship. I didn't really see where he went in all of that accident, whether or not he avoided contact. The car seems okay, can't see any damage on the car, but he would have been right in the thick of all of that. Of course, that's one of the it's often the way, isn't it, when you have a bad qualifying, it all sort of snowballs. That means that you're in the thick of the drama should it kick off at the start of the race. You've then got to pick your way sort of through the field. Your chances of getting involved in contact are increased tenfold, and of course, if that happens, you've then got a damaged car. You might not get out for race 2. Even if you do get out for race 2, you'll be at the back of the grid. So it's really important that if you do start further back there, you survive the first few minutes unscathed. Well, we're seeing the notification now on the screen that the race will be restarted in 15 minutes time, so there is going to be a short delay before we get our first Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup race of the day underway. So what we're going to do, we'll leave you hang on, yes, beg your pardon. Yes, I'd misread that as well. I was told in my ear it was a 15-minute delay, but no, I'd misread the message as well. It's not a 15-minute delay, it will be over 15 minutes will be the restarted race, so my apologies. It will therefore be a slightly shortened race for the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup, just 5 minutes knocked off the time. Simon Walton, once his car is out of the way, we hopefully should be good to go. We'll have another green flag lap, of course, because these cars all run on slick racing tyres, so they'll have lost all of their temperature by now. And we saw just how important the particularly the rear tyre temperature was, and this is something that we see very often in front-wheel drive, short wheelbase cars, and that's exactly what these cars are, particularly things like the Golfs, which are quite stiff at the rear end. The rear tyre temperature is key, because of course they're front-wheel drive, so the front wheels deal with acceleration, the bulk of the braking, they deal with all of the steering as well, of course, so getting the front tyres up to temperature is no difficulty at all. The rear tyres they're just sort of along for the ride. They don't really do all that much work, and so they don't warm up anything like as quickly as the front tyres, and so consequently when you arrive at that first corner at racing speed for the first time and you turn in, the rear tyres might not quite be up to their optimum working range, and so it's not uncommon to see in front-wheel drive cars incidents just like the one we've seen, where cars can snap sideways in the early stages. Unfortunately, in the early stages of the race, that's when everyone's so closely bunched together as well, so the chances of them being collected by one or multiple cars is fairly high. See Stuart Lyons there on the pit wall watching on. Of course, this is the championship that he helps to run. Stuart Lyons, the Maximum Motorsport TCR racer, and he runs the VW Racing Cup, and it is very keen for them to be on the TCR UK package. This is the third time, I believe, that they've been with the TCR support bill. We didn't stream their races live from Silverstone, but we did from Alton Park last time out, and they produced some of the most entertaining racing of the day, because these are sort of mini touring cars really. Performance-wise, they're not that far away from a TCR car. They're a bit slower, but not massively. They are not quite as technologically advanced, but they still run on slick tyres. They've got decent amounts of aerodynamics. They're proper bits of kit, and this is a real breeding ground for potential future touring car racing stars. Wouldn't be at all surprised to see a lot of these drivers on the TCR grid in the future. So as the field lines up then ahead of the second green flag lap, we will have another chance for the drivers to try and get some temperature for the tyres, and then a restart over 15 minutes the duration will be, and the green flag lap is now underway. The cars make their way back down towards Turbo. Last chance to try and get some much needed temperature into the tyres. They go. Jamie Bond, who himself had a big moment down there, of course, at the initial start. He held on to the car, but Simon Walton not quite so. Look at there's Martin Depper, the only diesel car on the grid. And, oh, now that's an issue. Now that's Josh Coggan, who we did see get tangled in that start shunt. You can see the damage there on the right rear corner. The car doesn't appear to want to fire up on the grid, so the marshal's going to have to run down and give him a bit of a push start. But if they can't get the car rolling, then he's going to have to be pushed out of the way and will not take the restart. That will be a shame. That means that the cars that were due to line up first, third and fourth on the grid potentially are not going to be there. So this might be quite a common sight, a fairly lonely Jamie Bond, who even on this green flag lap is running away from everybody else. His nearest rival, therefore, is likely to be the red car of Rory Clark, who has raced in the past, well, who did a full season last year in the BMW Compact Cup, who have also been on the TCR bill a few times this year, and provided great thrills and very close racing. And Rory Clark, who was a regular sort of top 10, top 12 finisher in that championship, he's really come alive in the Miltech Racing, Miltech Sport Volkswagen Racing Cup. That's good news. Josh Coggan has got the car fired up, but because he was overtaken by everybody else on their green flag lap, well, it matters little. He's heading into the pit lane anyway, heading into the paddock. I was going to say, because everyone had overtaken him, he wouldn't be able to retake his original starting position, but as it is, he's not taking the start anyway, so they got the car fired up. So clearly some sort of underlying issue, which means that he can't take the start. So the field work their way out on the far side of the circuit. Rory Clark then, as I said, he'll line up in the fifth grid position with 3 empty spaces in front of him. So Rory Clark will have nobody around him. Well, Jamie Bond really won't have anyone around him. He's going to be surely the favourite to lead into turn 1, as he did on the initial start of the race. There is the 33 machine. That's Jack Depper, who I'm presuming is the son of Martin, who is also in the grid, of course, a little bit further up the order. That, as far as I'm aware, is a petrol Scirocco. But Martin Depper, who was running well at Alton Park before getting tipped into a spin at the final corner and had a pretty heavy head-on impact with the barriers. But they've got that DW Racing DW Scirocco repaired and looking as immaculate as ever. Martin Depper, a real character in the paddock, whatever championship it is that he races in. And he's a very quick driver as well, and can't forget that. And he will be working his way through from 10th on the grid. Now, is that a bit of rain starting to make a return? I'm looking outside of my window. I can see a few specks of rain on my windows. I can see a few on the camera lens up there at the complex. So I do believe that we might have had to see a change of conditions. Now, unlike in our Formula Ford race earlier on, in which the cars run on grooved tyres, these cars are all on slicks. So if it starts raining, it will cause them some real problems. And if it really starts pelting it down now, we'll be surprised to see another delayed start. We hope that won't be the case, but at the same time, we've already seen these cars maybe struggling for grip a little bit on the first lap anyway. Well, we're going to go racing. The red lights are on. They go out now, and let's try this again. Take 2 of the Miltech Sport BW Racing Cup, and Jamie Bond is off the line well. Rory Clark into second position as expected, with Simon Walton there on the outside. The Diesel, Scirocco and Martin Depper further back, using the torque of the Diesel engine to get off the line well. They're 3 abreast into the first corner. We don't know how much grip they're going to get when they get there. The car sideways further back. Well, let's hope they're going to repeat what we saw before. No, that car exits stage right across the grass, so no contact made. Jamie Bond leads the way. Clark in second. Simon Walton there in third position. Fourth place is Mark Wakefield, and fifth position for number 5 car of Anthony Prendergast, who's had a much better start this time around. Paul Taylor in behind him, who's not had quite such a good start as he did the first time asking. But towards Tower they go. A bit of bodywork flying on one of the cars there as Owen Walton dives up the inside of Rory Clark. He takes second place away. But where did that bodywork come from? That maybe a remnant of the incident that we had on the initial start of the race. I'm not too sure. Still seems to be there, so there's no major issues. We're now though heading into the part of the circuit from where the rain seems to be coming, and that's up towards Barcroft and the Sunny in and out complex. Let's hope they all get through here safely. Rory Clark late on the brakes. They all seem okay for the time being, so it is raining. It's not too heavily. A couple of them have switched the windscreen wipers on. Jamie Bond, the race leader, on the grass there going out of Sunny. That will lose him time, but also, more importantly, he'll have dirt all over the outside tyres now, so the next time he turns right, which he's about to do, he won't have quite as much grip as he would have been expecting. Behind, very close stuff there behind with Martin Depper and Matthew Wilson, I think, was involved in all of that as well. Matthew Wilson's second in the championship. His big rival is leading the race at the moment. Across the line they go, on to the second lap of the race, and everyone's surviving so far this time around, with Jamie Bond leads by 1.1 seconds over Owen Walton in second position. Rory Clark is third. Now, that Audi TT is a little bit of a longer, a little bit of a wider wheelbase than the Golf. If it starts getting a bit slippery out there, you would imagine that would play into the hands of Owen Walton in second position. Let's see whether he can close in the leader. I'd say he's already doing so on this opening lap. The gap was 1.1 seconds. Let's see what it is when they get down towards Tower Corner. It's definitely coming down, I think. Slippery surface flags are out, so it's definitely starting to rain again out there. Down towards the braking zone they go, but look at the way that Owen Walton has closed in on Jamie Bond here, so this is the battle for the race lead. A shortened race, remember, 15 minutes, so Owen has to get on with this. He can't really afford to sit in behind Jamie Bond and wait for the race to come to him. If he's got the pace to go through, he may as well go for it, especially because Jamie will have one eye on the championship here. He knows that he doesn't need to win this race, he just needs to beat Matthew Evans, who currently is down in 7th position, so he gained 1 place on the first lap. So Jamie Bond doesn't really need to push too hard, doesn't need to take too many risks, but the car is dancing around through Sunny once again. He keeps on the black stuff this time around though. They're both checking out for the rest of the field. Rory Clark in third, Mark Wakefield fourth, Paul Taylor in 5th position. So Paul did gain ground on the opening lap, but not quite as much ground as he did first time around. There he is, the white and yellow car in the background. That is Mark Wakefield, former mini challenge racer. Croft Racing, Mark Wakefield, who is not in the top 10 in the championship. I don't think he's done a full season though. But the races that he has taken part in, he's been contending for top 5 finishes in every one of them. Leaders across the start-finish line. The gap that was 1.1 seconds is now 0.6 seconds, and it will be no surprise to anybody that it's the second place car that's just set the fastest lap of the race. Owen Walton taking a very strange line into Claire Bonet. I didn't think anyway close to really attack Jamie Bond. It turned out that he wasn't. He stays in second place, but he went in on a very tight line into the first corner. That hurts his speed through the next sequence of corners, so Jamie Bond is let off the hook for the time being. A bit more drizzle down the back straight towards the tower, but so far they're dealing with the conditions really very well. It's a very bumpy braking zone though, and as you can see, slightly downhill, and again Walton coming from a long way back there, but he seems much later on the brakes, doesn't he? Closes right in on Jamie Bond, loses a bit of time on the exit by virtue of going in on that tight line, but it is a net gain through the corner, and he's right with the leader now as they go through the part of the circuit that really should suit the slightly more stable Audi. Through the left and the right of Jim Clark S's, down towards the right-hander at Barcroft, and it strangely looks a bit brighter over there now, doesn't it? Yes, I think it's raining sunny, but at certain parts of the circuit it's looking a bit brighter, so trying to second guess the conditions here is not going to be easy. Down towards the complex they go, and actually Owen Walton has now dropped back from Jamie Bond again through that sequence. Oops, got a car off further back. That's Tom Walker down at Sunny. Did he jump or was he pushed? Not too sure. that is another one of the maximum motorsport run cars. Wakefield with a lock up into the complex. He's in 4th position, still trying to chase down Rory Clark ahead of him. They move their way through the slowest sequence of corners on the track, one of the slowest corners in British motorsport there at the final hairpin, and then back out onto the pit straight again. A few drivers sort of got windscreen wipers on intermittently, but it's still really just this psychological rain, isn't it? It's not really pelting it down as such, it's not wet, it's just getting a bit damp and greasy. Taylor looking down in 5th position at the moment. He's 1.3 seconds behind Mark Wakefield, but was about 4/10 quicker than him that time around. So Paul Taylor making some inroads into the cars in front and pulling away by about half a second from Darren Lewis behind him. Behind Darren, 3.1 seconds behind him, is Matthew Evans, who's not really making the ground that he would like to. Matthew Wilson, second place in the championship, is down in 8th position at the moment as the sun now starts to shine down at Tower. It's going to be one of those days today, isn't it, where we never really know what the weather's going to do from 1 minute to the next. Owen Walton doesn't really know how hard he can push, but Jamie Bond, as the race leader, is the first man to arrive at every corner. He is the guinea pig. He's the one that will discover first whether or not it's wet or dry. And so Owen Walton, in theory, running in 2nd place, should have a slight advantage. Jamie Bond all out of shape again through the very slippery sunny in corner. This has been his Achilles heel all race. He's already had an off on the exit of that complex. Very nearly had another one going into it that time. That could have spelled disaster. He's getting away though from Owen Walton, who seems to now be struggling a bit more in the conditions. Work their way through the left, through the right. Fastest lap of the race, remember, was set by Owen Walton before at 1:32.8. His previous lap was 34.0, so it's definitely a bit more slippery out there than it was at the start. You can see a bit of spray now being kicked up by the cars coming into the hairpin, despite the fact that the sun is now glistening off the bodywork of the cars on this part of the track. Back through they come. Lap number 4 is completed. 8/10 of a second is now the gap between the leaders. 7/10 of a second is the gap between these two cars. Rory Clark in 3rd, Mark Wakefield in 4th. Darren Lewis has got Paul Taylor all over him there behind. And look at the rain now up at Clervaux. It's really coming down quite heavily up at the first sector of the lap. But they've got some temperature into the tyres now, so they're not necessarily going to struggle for grip as much as you might expect. So Mark Wakefield is a bit more comfortable in these conditions maybe than Rory Clark, who has certainly started to drop back from the leaders and back into the clutches of the 4th place man. Rory drives very defensively down towards Tower Corner. Wakefield gets the wide line in to then convert it into the tight line out. I wonder that's what he's going to try and do, carry the speed down towards the Jim Clark S's, but Rory Clark with his driver's window still flapping loose after some contact, presumably in that opening lap with the shunt at the first corner. It's not slowing him down at all though. Through Barcroft, back down towards Sunny. It's still raining down here. Defensive line from Rory Clark. It really slows the car down at the apex, but I think the rain has stopped now at that end of the circuit. It's moved across the circuit now, and it's now dampening the first sector rather than the last sector. Towards the complex they go though, and still Clark holding on to this 3rd position. There are the leaders. Jamie Bond from Owen Walton, no change in the order there, but the change in the order could come from 3rd place as Rory Clark blocks up, runs wide through the right hand part of the complex. That puts him on the inside line for the hairpin. Watch for the exit speeds here though, if Wakefield times this right to get underneath him coming down the straight. That was beautifully done by Mark Wakefield. He judged that to perfection to get through into 3rd position, and Mark Wakefield takes the podium place away from Rory Clark, who thought he had that one covered because he didn't even really run that wide on the exit, but Wakefield saw the gap, went for it, and got superior traction out of the corner, locks up into Hawthorne though in the ever more slippery conditions at that part of the circuit. He's into 3rd. Can he now catch Owen Walton? I wonder. It's a big ask because Owen is 4.5 seconds in front of him, and there are 6.5 minutes still to go. That's Tom Witts off, and it is definitely now getting treacherous up at the first corner. Tom Witts has gone off into the barriers at Clervaux. Now that could require another safety car, certainly if they decide that more cars could go off there. And in these conditions, you wouldn't bet against that. So they may well require the safety car here to get that car out of the way. The rain continues to worsen, then they may even decide to stop the race altogether. But Mark Wakefield, I sense, will be quite happy if they let this race keep running, because he's looking really comfortable in the conditions, pulling away now from Rory Clark in 3rd position. His previous lap was 4/10 slower than Owen Walton, but of course he did some overtaking in that lap, so in clean air this time around. What can he do compared to the leaders' lap times? Out of Sunny they go. Rory Clark dropping wheel into the grass this time as he runs down the back straight towards the final complex. 5 3/4 minutes left on the clock. No sign yet of a safety car, which is interesting. They do have a live snatch vehicle that's often in operation up in the first corner, but they're willing to cover that under yellow flags, I'd be a bit surprised. The rain really coming down hard though in the final corner now. As they rush back across the start finish line. There is Jamie Bond, 1 minute 34.9. See, they're only lapping about a second and a half away from the fastest lap, so they're not going all that slowly really, given that despite the clearly very challenging and very changeable conditions out there. There's Tom Wicks watching on, chatting away to the marshals there at the first corner. Jamie Bond though, your race leader. Second place Owen Walton, third is Mark Wakefield, who was half a second quicker than Walton that time, so 4 seconds is the gap between second and third. So if Owen Walton continues to lose pace and Mark Wakefield continues to find pace, then it's not beyond the realms of possibility that the gap could come down and look like Michael Joy for second position. Bond works his way now through the right-hander at Tower Corner. Owen Walton going through as well. They've both just put a lap on the 40 car of Simon Tomlinson, which was the Golf that was just getting out of their way. But Owen Walton there, of course, proving what I know about anything. I thought that car would be really well suited to these conditions, but maybe it's a setup thing, maybe it's a tyre thing, but whatever it is, he's not really been at home ever since it started raining. He was really applying the pressure to Bond in the early stages of the race, but as soon as the rain came in any great capacity, then he really started to slip back. There is the live snatch vehicle that I mentioned, dragging Tom Witt's car out of the way. So they're going to cover that under yellow flags. Hopefully by the time they next get to that corner, not this time, but the time after, it should be out of the way. A battle developing there for 4th position between Rory Clark, the red number 52 car, and the dark 285 of Darren Lewis. Former Mazda MX-5 race winner is Darren Lewis, and Darren is right with Clark, I noticed, as they came into the complex that time around. The cars come across the start finish line with 3 3/4 minutes still to go. And Mark Wakefield in third place is now lapping a lot quicker, a second and a half quicker than Owen Walton that time around. So he gets the gap down now to just 2.4 seconds. At this rate, he is going to catch the second place man, maybe even have time to overtake him and move up a further step on the podium. So Mark Wakefield driving really, really well at the moment. There's that fight I was talking about for 4th place with Rory Clark and Darren Lewis together. Paul Taylor is the car closing in on the pair of them as well. So this could become a very entertaining 3-way scrap for 4 before the race finishes. Rain on this particular lap seems to have abated slightly, so track conditions improving again now over the final few minutes. Let's hope that's the last of the rain we see, because in the dry conditions the drivers might have a bit more confidence to really start going for it. All the S's they go again. Clark in 4th, Lewis in 5th, Taylor in 6th, and much quicker through the corner there for Darren Lewis as he tries now to attack Rory Clark through Barcroft. Onto the brakes into Sunny, defensive line taken by the Scotsman. And so Darren Lewis, look at that, Rory Clark driving around the inside of the circuit, just trying not to open the door on the exit of the corner. Of course, that's how Mark Wakefield got past him, because he defended into the hairpin and then ran a bit wide on the exit and allowed Wakefield to get the switch back. So Clark is now wise to that, and he's trying to really slow the car up in the middle of the corner so as to not run wide coming out of it. Paul Taylor well and truly a part of this battle now as they make their way towards the hairpin, and Taylor looking to the inside, so too is Darren Lewis. In the end, it's a bit of a stalemate situation, no positions changed, but Rory Clark clearly struggling. Maybe he's overworked his tyres, because despite the fact that it's raining, we still have a very abrasive surface here at Croft, and so it will work these slick tyres very, very hard indeed. Clark heads down towards Thorburn, slowing the car down nice and early towards the right-hander. Lewis in behind him. The gap's in front of the field, by the way. Only 4/10 that time around, taken out of Owen Walton by Mark Wakefield. So Wakefield 2.2 seconds back with 2 laps to go. That's now looking a little bit less likely that he's going to catch him. What can Darren Lewis do, though, about Rory Clark? 4th position they are debating as they run down the back straight towards Tower Corner. Rory is going to surely defend the inside line, so Lewis goes to the outside. He can try the switchback manoeuvre again. For him, we try and take the late apex, tee him up on the run down towards the Jim Clark S as he carries more speed out of the turn, but not enough to get alongside, so he just sits in behind the number 52 car on the run in towards this dauntingly quick sequence of corners where it does look like Rory Clark is struggling a bit. Darren Lewis looks quicker through there, doesn't he? Using the curve through Barcroft leads on to the brakes again at Sunny, and it's all getting... You sense that it's only so long before Darren Lewis or indeed Paul Taylor run out of patience here, because they've been keeping it very clean so far, but if they keep on getting held up to this extent by Rory Clark, then that patience may well run thin before the end of the race, which is now only 1 lap away, because the race leader Jamie Bond is coming into the final corner. This is the second place man Owen Walton. Look at the lock up there as he turns into the hairpin. looks to me as though Mark Wakefield has caught him again slightly on this lap. The gap was 2.2 seconds. Walton comes across the start-finish line and does a 1 minute 34.7, and it's a 34.0 for Wakefield. So yes, 7 tenths quicker, 1.5 seconds is now the gap. But Jamie Bond is 6 seconds clear of anybody else. He works his way through Hawthorn for the final time. He survived the first start. He made a great start on the restart as well, survived the slippery conditions despite the early pressure from Owen Walton. And Jamie Bond looks as though he's going to come home a race victor, and whilst I don't think this is quite enough to mathematically wrap up the championship, he's certainly going to be close to wrapping up the title. And if he doesn't do it in this race, then race 2 may well be decided. So we said that there were championships on the line here at Croft. Absolutely true, and the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup looks as though it's ever more certain to be going the way of this man, Jamie Bond, who works his way down towards Barcroft for the final time. The car looking on rails now, even though it looked quite dicey in the early laps. Maybe have the car set up to come on a bit stronger later on. That's often what they'll do with front-wheel drive cars, set the car up to be quite oversteer in the early stages, but that means you don't work the front tyres as well, because the car is turning a bit more easily. And that means that come the end of the race, particularly around a circuit that's so hard on the tyres as Croft is, then you're able to have a bit more speed under your belt and end the race on a high. That's exactly what Jamie Bond is doing as he puts one hand on the championship trophy. Out of the final corner he comes, and Jamie Bond will win the first race of the day for the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup. A really, really good drive that was from Jamie Bond. What's going to happen for second place? It's still Owen Walton. So Owen hangs on from Mark Wakefield in third. The gap came down to 1.2 seconds at the end. And in the end, Wakefield couldn't quite get close enough. Now, can Rory Clark fend off the rest for fourth position? He can. Now, Paul Taylor, the lap before, had got himself ahead of Darren Lewis, but at the line, Lewis pipped Taylor back again for the fifth position by 39/1,000ths of a second. So Lewis in fifth, Taylor sixth, Wilson seventh, Evans in eighth place. So those two swapped over towards the end as well. Matthew Wilson second in the championship, but only seventh in the race. Is that enough to keep the championship alive? Well, we'll try and find out for you before the second race later on. Martin Depper came home in ninth position, and rounding up the top 10 was Tom Walker. So it was a great drive from Jamie Bond. Owen Walton in second position, 1.2 seconds clear of Mark Wakefield at the flag, but I'm intrigued as to what was going on there with Owen, because he was looking like the quickest car on the track, certainly looked quicker than the cars around him in the early stages, and then it just seemed to fade, and you have to suspect that was something to do with the tyre wear. Jamie Bond really didn't seem to suffer there too much, did he? His last lap was within half a second of his personal best lap, so tyre wear not particularly becoming a factor for Jamie Bond. He therefore takes the race victory. 7.2 seconds nearly clear of Owen Walton in second place. Mark Wakefield is third, Rory Clark is fourth, and Darren Lewis rounding out the top 5. Then it was Paul Taylor. Matthew Wilson down in seventh position, not the result he was hoping for, with Matty Evans 8th, Martin Depper 9th, and Tom Walker rounding out the top 10. In 11th place, we had Anthony Prendergast, who started the race, of course, a little bit further up the order than that, in 7th, so he dropped backwards. Toby Davis came from the back of the grid to 12th, Jack Depper was 13th, Simon Tomlinson 14th, Tom Witts was 15th, and Josh Coggan classified 16th, although he was actually a non-finisher. Well, it was an entertaining race, as always they seem to be for the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup. It all started in dramatic fashion when Jamie Bond got himself ahead of Simon Walton off the initial start of the race, only for Simon to make a bit of a mistake on cold tyres through the first corner. The car snapped loose on him as it came out of the first turn, and he was collected by several other cars, unfortunately putting Josh Jackson and eventually Josh Coggan out of the race. With several cars lying around the side of the track, the red flag was thrown, and the restarted race saw Jamie Bond once again hold on to the lead, but with the rain coming in over the first few laps, it was very, very dicey for all concerned as they tried to keep the car on the road. Rory Clark got through into second on the restart ahead of Owen Walton, but Owen immediately put the pressure on. We had moments though for cars further back, and in particular Tom Walker running wide down at the Sunny Complex. Owen Walton in second position was chasing down Jamie Bond in the early stages, who seems to be struggling with an oversteery car, but eventually he was able to pull away to win the race by over 7 seconds. The real battle was the one for third between Rory Clark and Mark Wakefield. Mark executing a pitch-perfect switchback manoeuvre at the hairpin to move through into a third place, and he would not surrender. That left Rory to defend from Darren Lewis and Paul Taylor, who themselves swapped positions towards the end of the race before swapping back again, with Lewis taking fifth. It was Jamie Bond though who took the race victory, and that does an awful lot of good for his hopes of becoming the 2018 champion. Jamie took the victory from Owen Walton in second place, Mark Wakefield third, and Matthew Wilson, Jamie's biggest championship rival, only real championship rival, all the way down in 7th place. And actually, with Rory Clark finishing in 4th place, Rory will now close the gap on Matthew Wilson for 2nd place in the points. So it's all change at the top of the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup. It's going to be a fascinating run into the final few rounds of the season. One more race coming up for those cars, of course, later on today. That will be our final race of the day at 20 to 6. So make sure you stick around for that one. We could see a champion crowned in that race. Well, the dark clouds looming overhead, ahead of what is still a very busy afternoon. We've got more TCR action coming up very shortly. For now, though, we're going to take a very short break and be back with our next racing action in just a few minutes' time.